Hi boys and girls, I hope everybody had a wonderful Easter weekend. Well, welcome back to week 4 of remote learning, and I chose a book that reminds me that I read every Easter time, and it's called The Tale of Peter Rabbit, and it's an old book that's been around a long time. And before I read the book to you, I do have a poster up here. I want us to talk about cause and effect today, and I'm going to tell you what that means. If you look up here at my anchor chart, you see a sun up here and the word cause. And it says cause is why something happens. And then if you look down here at the bottom, you'll see an ice cream cone that looks like it's dripping. And that says effect, what happened. So the cause is why something happened. The effect is what happened because of it. So if I were to have an ice cream cone out on a hot sunny day, look at the ice cream cone. What's happening? Do you see it dripping and melting? That's what happened, and the reason it happened is because the sun was out and it was hot. Well, today in the story of The Tale of Peter Rabbit, there's many things that Peter gets himself into and things happen. So I want you, as I read the story today, to look for cause and effect, because Peter is a little mischievous, so we're going to see what he gets himself into. So, The Tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrix Potter. Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a very big fir tree. "Now, my dears," said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, "you may go into the fields or down the lane, but do not go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there, and he was put into a pie by Mrs. McGregor. Now run along and don't get into any mischief. I'm going out." Then old Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella, and she went through the woods to the baker's. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. But do you notice who's missing? But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden, and he squeezed underneath the gate. First he ate some lettuces and some French beans, and then he ate some radishes, and then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. But round the end of a cucumber frame, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting out young cabbages, but he jumped up and he ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!" Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages and the other shoe among the potatoes. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went faster, so that I think he might have gotten away altogether if he had not unfortunately run into a gooseberry net and got caught by the large buttons on his jacket. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons, quite new. Peter gave himself up for lost, and he shed big tears, but his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows, who flew to him in great excitement and implored him to exert himself. Mr. McGregor came up with a sieve, which he intended to pop on the top of Peter, but Peter wriggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind, and he rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not had so much water in it. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden underneath the flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each. Presently, Peter sneezed. "Kerchoo!" Mr. McGregor was after him in no time, and he tried to put his foot upon Peter, who jumped out of a window, upsetting 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running after Peter, so he went back to his work. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and he was trembling with fright, and he had not the least idea which way to go. Also, he was very damp from sitting in that can, and after a time he began to wonder about going lippity-lippity, not very fast, and looking all around. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the wood. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer. She only shook her head at him, and Peter began to cry. Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but he became more and more puzzled. Presently, he came to a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his water cans. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very, very still, but now and then the tip of her tail twitched as if it were alive. Peter thought it best to go away without speaking to her. He had heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. He went back toward the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe. Scritch, scratch, scratch, scritch. Peter scuttered underneath the bushes, but presently, as nothing happened, he came out, and he climbed upon a wheelbarrow and peeped over. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned towards Peter, and beyond him was the gate. See if you see the gate. Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow, and he started running as fast as he could go, a long straight walk behind some black currant bushes. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter did not care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the wood outside the garden. Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and the shoes for a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him till he got home to the big fir tree. He was so tired that he flopped down upon the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole, and he shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in a fortnight. I am sorry to say that Peter was not very well during the evening. His mother put him to bed and made some chamomile tea, and she gave a dose of it to Peter, 1 tablespoon to be taken at bedtime, but Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to take this chart down, and I have a chart up here from the story, The Tale of Peter Rabbit. And on this side in the red is the cause, and then we're going to see what happened, the effect from things that Peter did in the story. So the first one said, Peter ate so many vegetables. Do you remember what happened when he ate so many vegetables? Take a second to think about it. Peter felt very sick because he ate too many vegetables. Let's look at example number 2. It says, Peter ran into a gooseberry net. What do you remember that happened in the story when he ran into the net? Let's find out. The effect was that Peter lost his jacket. Remember the blue one with the brass buttons? That was new. Next, Peter jumped into the watering can. Do you remember what happened when he jumped into the watering can? Let's see. The effect was Peter got wet. Next, it says, Mr. McGregor chased Peter. Do you remember what happened when he chased Peter? Let's find out. Oh, now Peter lost his shoes. And last one says, when Peter returned home, he did not feel well. And do you remember what happened at the end of the story? The effect was Peter had to drink chamomile tea and go to bed instead of getting to enjoy a special treat like his brothers and sisters. Well, I want you to think today about a time when maybe you made a choice or did something that maybe was a good choice, maybe was a not so good choice. And because you did that, the why you did that, what happened as a result? And my example would be one time when Miss Brooks was a little girl, probably a little older than you are right now. I got a brand new pair of sandals and my mom had gone to the store. They had just come out and she told me to put my sandals away, and I left them outside in the backyard. And the effect was, what happened? The dog chewed up my shoes and I got grounded for the first time. So I want you to think of a time when you did something, an event or a choice you made, and because of that choice, what happened? That's called cause and effect. And if you have paper at home, just take a piece of paper, fold it in half, and on one side draw and write the cause, the why, and then on the other side draw the effect, what happened because of that. Well, I hope you enjoyed the story, and I can't wait to see what you came up with, your circumstances or things that might be similar to like what Peter Rabbit did. So have a great day, and I will see y'all next time. Bye-bye.